And welcome to another chapter, well, another 2 chapters of Matilda today. So we've got 4 chapters left and we're reading 2 today, and we'll read the last 2 tomorrow when I'll be back at school again. So let's get started. So here are the last 2 chapters. It's called The Names, and then the next one is called The Practice. So the first one's quite short and the second one is not too bad. So we're going to start at page 200 and then we're going to finish at page 208. So we've got 8 pages to read today, so it's not so bad. Tomorrow is much longer. So let's get started. I'm really excited to see what happens after Miss Honey has told Matilda her story. The names. Miss Trunchbull, Matilda cried, jumping about with a foot in the air. You mean she's your aunt? She brought you up? Yes, Miss Honey said. No wonder you were terrified, Matilda cried. The other day when we saw her grab the girl by her pigtails and throw her over the playground fence. You haven't seen anything, Miss Honey said. After my father died when I was 5 1/2, she used to make me bathe myself all alone, and if she came up and thought I hadn't washed properly, she would put my head under the water and hold it there. But don't get me started on what she used to do. That won't help us at all. No, Matilda said, it won't. We came here, Miss Honey said, to talk about you, and I've been talking about nothing but myself the whole time. I feel like such a fool. I am much more interested in how much you can do with those amazing eyes of yours. I can move things, Matilda said. I know I can. I can push things over. How would you like it, Miss Honey said, if I was to make some very cautious experiments to see how much you can move and push? Quite surprisingly, Matilda said, if you don't mind, Miss Honey, I think I'd rather not. I want to go home now and think about all the things I've heard this afternoon. Miss Honey stood up at once. Of course, she said. I've kept you here far too long. Your mother will be starting to worry. She never does that, Matilda sighed, smiling. But I'd like to go home now, please, if you don't mind. Come along then, Miss Honey said. I'm sorry I gave you such a rotten tea. You didn't at all, Matilda said. I loved it. The 2 of them walked all the way to Matilda's house in complete silence. Miss Honey sensed that Matilda wanted it that way. The child seemed to be so lost in thought that she hardly looked where she was walking, and when they reached the gate of Matilda's home, Miss Honey said, You better forget everything I told you this afternoon. I won't promise to do that, Matilda said, but I will promise not to talk about it to anyone or any more, not even you. I think that would be wise, Miss Honey said. I won't promise to stop thinking about it, though, Miss Honey, Matilda said. I've been thinking about it all the way back from your cottage, and I believe you, I've just got a tiny idea. You mustn't, Miss Honey said. Please forget it. I would like to ask you 3 last things before I stop talking about it, Matilda said. Please will you answer them, Miss Honey? Miss Honey smiled. It was extraordinary, she told herself, how little this snippet of a girl seemed to suddenly be taking charge of her problems, and with such authority too. Well, she said, that depends on what the questions are. The first thing is, Matilda said, what did Mr. Trunchbull call your father when they were in the house at home? I'm sure she called him Magnus, Miss Honey said. That was his first name. And what did your father call Miss Trunchbull? Her name was Agatha, Miss Honey said. That was what he would have called her. And lastly, Matilda said, what did your father and Miss Trunchbull call you around the house? They called me Jenny, Miss Honey said. Matilda pondered these answers very carefully. Let me make sure I've got it right, she said. In the house at home, your father was Magnus, Miss Trunchbull was Agatha, and you were Jenny. Am I right? That's correct, Miss Honey said. Thank you, Matilda, and now I won't mention the subject any more. Miss Honey wondered what on earth was going on in the mind of this child. Don't do anything silly, she said. Matilda laughed and turned away and ran up the path to her front door, calling out as she went, Goodbye, Miss Honey. Thank you so much for tea. So that was the end of that chapter. So that was a very short chapter, which is why we're reading 2 today. And she asked her a question of what the Miss Trunchbull, Miss Honey's father, and what did Miss Honey, what were their names in the house? Because they obviously, the father wouldn't say Miss Trunchbull to Miss Trunchbull. So what's she going to do with this information? Miss Honey's also very curious, like me. This chapter is called The Practice. Matilda found the house empty as usual. Her father was not back from work yet, and her mother was not back from her bingo, and her brother might be anywhere. She went straight into the living room and opened the drawer of the sideboard, where she knew her father kept a box of cigars. She took one out and carried it up to the bedroom and shut herself in. Now for the practice, she told herself. It's going to be tough, but I'm determined to do it. Her plan for helping Miss Honey was beginning to form beautifully in her mind. She was now in almost every detail, but in the end it all depended on her being able to do one specific thing with her eye power. She knew she wouldn't manage it right away, but she felt fairly confident that with a great deal of practice and effort she would be able to succeed in the end. The cigar was essential. It was perhaps a bit thicker than she would have liked, but the weight was about right. It would be fine for practicing with. So this chapter is all about practicing something. It's called The Practice, and we have got the word practice quite a few times. Practice here, and we've got it quite a few times. I wonder why she's using a cigar. She's saying the cigar's not perfect, but it was about the right weight to practice with. So I wonder what she's going to do. Let's keep going. There was a small dressing table in Matilda's bedroom with a hairbrush and a comb on it, and 2 library books. She cleared all these things off to one side, and she laid the cigar down in the middle of the dressing table. She walked away and she sat on the end of her bed. She was now about 10 feet from the cigar. She settled herself and began to concentrate, and very quickly this time she began to feel the electricity beginning to flow inside her head, gathering itself behind her eyes. And the eyes became hot, and millions of tiny invisible hands came pushing out like sparks towards the cigar. Move, she whispered towards and to her intense surprise, almost at once, the cigar and its little red and gold paper band around the middle rolled away across the top of the dressing table and fell onto the carpet. So you notice that Matilda's getting much quicker with her powers now. The first time she did it was obviously she was shocked, but it took a long time for the glass to tip, and now she's getting much quicker because she's practicing. Matilda enjoyed that. It was lovely doing it. It felt that the sparks were going round and round inside her head and flashing out of her eyes. It had given her a sense of power that was almost ethereal. And how quickly it had been this time, how simple. She crossed the bedroom and picked up the cigar and put it back on the table. Now for one difficult one, she thought. But if I have the power to push, surely I also have the power to lift. It is vital I learn how to lift. I must learn how to lift it right up into the air and keep it there. It's not a very heavy thing, a cigar. She sat on the end of her bed and started again. It was easy to summon up the power behind her eyes. It was like pushing a trigger in her brain. Lift, she whispered. Lift, lift. And at first the cigar started to roll away, but then, with Matilda concentrating fiercely, one end of it slowly lifted up about an inch off the tabletop. With a colossal effort she managed to hold it there for about 10 seconds. Then it fell back again. Phew, she gasped. I'm getting it. I'm starting to do it. For the next hour Matilda kept practicing, and in the end she had managed by sheer power in her eyes to lift the whole cigar clean off the table, about 6 inches in the air, and hold it there for about a minute. Suddenly she was so exhausted she fell back on her bed and went to sleep. That was how her mother found her later in the evening. So Matilda has practiced and she's trying to lift something up. Well, we know it's a cigar, but she's not going to use a cigar in the real plan. She's trying to lift something up, and she's actually made lots of progress because she can now lift something off the air about 6 inches, and she can do it for about a minute. So she's really getting better. What's the matter with you? Her mother said, waking her up. Are you ill? Oh gosh, Matilda said, sitting up and looking around. No, I'm all right. A bit tired, that's all. From then on, every day after school, Matilda shut herself in her room and practised with the cigar. And soon it began to come together in the most wonderful way. 6 days later, by the following Wednesday evening, she was not only able to lift the cigar up in the air, but to move it around exactly as she wished. It was beautiful. I can do it, she cried. I can really do it. I can pick up the cigar just with my eye power and push it and pull it around in the air any way I want. All she had to do was put her great plan into action. And that is the end of our 2 chapters here. Like I said, they were quite short. Now, what is Matilda's great plan? Obviously, if you've read the book before, you've seen the movie, you know, what her great plan is. But she wants to be able to lift something and move it around in any way she wants. And she can do that, but she says that that was what she needed to do to put her great plan into action. So she's been practicing. So she said to Miss Honey she had a plan. So I don't think it'll be something she does at home. It'll be something she does at school. So what do you think she might do at school? What do you think her great plan is? Well, one thing's for sure, we're going to find out tomorrow, because we've got 2 chapters tomorrow and we've got the end of the book, which is really exciting. But I would like to ask all the Year 2s a favour. So next week we have got 5 days of Google Classroom, for our last 5 days, but we have finished Matilda this week. So I would like to know if you want to read a book to your friends. You can record a video just like I do. You don't have to have the book on the screen. You could just show us the pictures, or you could just read it. We can see a lovely video. So if you would like to share a story with your friends, you can send it to me. I'll write it on Google Classroom so you can see it. You can send me a copy of the video, and next week we can have stories by your friends. Wouldn't that be a lovely idea? Okay, well, I can't wait to see your videos of you reading. If I have 5, I'll put one each day. If I have more than 5, I can put more than one on each day, which will be nice. But have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow for the last 2 chapters of Matilda. Bye.